Archangel.
Are you just playing with your feet?
No. This is why I'm glad it's not a record. You're not doing the video as well. It's just the audio.
You're a strange little troll man, aren't you? So, Samuel Hughes. Basically, the idea of this podcast is that I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and it's all celebrities. And I thought, with all this lockdown going
You
on,
wanted to do that yourself, and you asked me.
yeah. But you're my celebrity. You're my celebrity for this.
Oh God!
You're the world's most famous Brummie now.
Thank you for that.
That's all right. #Performing Arts with John Ellis Benton. And in this week's episode,
Sam Hughes.
to be fair, I was genuinely thinking about it earlier. Like, I've only known you for the last 5 or 6 years. Before that, you're an enigma.
I know, 5 or 6 years.
I know. Gets you down, doesn't it?
Well, if you want to know when I started acting, that would be 2011, 2012 sort of time. So I didn't even acting wasn't even a thought in my mind until about year 10.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So what was it like in school? What was the thing in school in year 10 that made you think, oh, I could do that. I can stand up in front of people and be someone else.
Yeah, because say with school there wasn't really anything drama centric at all until I hit year 10. We had a teacher called Miss Bradbury who joined the school. Who, she really wanted to push pushing drama as an option, not just for educational purposes, but for like after school and actually putting on shows in the school.
So drama wasn't actually a thing in your school up until Miss Bradbury?
No, when I got to sixth form was the first opportunity to do drama, and that was because my sixth form was linked with the girls' school where I went to the boys' school. They did drama, but the boys' school didn't. No, it wasn't until Miss Bradbury came in and she started pushing for an initiative where she wanted to put on a show at school to see if there was any interest for it. And it was actually one of my old mates who just went to me, "Oh, come along, I'm going to go to the audition. Come with me." And so I did on the off chance and I ended up quite enjoying it. Was it going to be close to 10 years later? I'm still doing it.
What was the audition for?
Originally, it was for Animal Park. Not Animal Park. Animal Farm.
Animal Farm. Animal Park, that's a zoo, Sam.
Yeah, Animal Farm. And originally, we were going to do that, and I was going to play Old Major. Oh, God.
That's the pig, isn't it?
Yeah. He's the pig who dies at the end.
Well, spoilers, I've never seen or read it.
Yeah. He's basically the character that represents sort of the Lenin of the rise of communism.
Right.
Lenin / Marx. And they say he gets shot right at the beginning. So.
Oh, okay, so it's not really a spoiler. It's
No, I'd have been on stage for maybe 5 minutes and then died.
all right. Okay. No, that's. But you were aiming high then.
Yeah, that was my first sort of introduction to acting. But Animal Farm didn't end up going ahead because of essentially a lot of the lads who originally said they would do the show just dropped out halfway through. And so we ended up doing like a smaller murder mystery show, and that was what we actually ended up doing, and that went down really well. And I think it went better because all the lads who actually ended up staying to do that show were much more interested in it rather than just, oh, it's a passing fancy and, oh, I'll give it a go and probably won't enjoy it that much. But no, that show went really well.
That's the problem with school. Before you try and actually do it as a qualification, school is just like people just do it as a dot around, don't they?
Yeah, it's more recreational rather than an activity where everyone is taking a proper interest in making it wanting it to be a really good performance.
Right. Okay. What about in the family? There's no one in the family that does performing arts or anything, is there? Like,
no, my sister did performances at school as well, and she did singing and that in choir and that. But other than that, like the only shows that I'd ever go to see when I was younger was sort of pantomime and stuff like that that parents would take me to.
Yeah, where was that? That was at the
Hippodrome.
Hippodrome. Yeah. So what was the first one you saw? Have you got any name drops? You've normally got a name drop when you go to these pantos.
Well, it was Joe Pasquale, I think, was the first one. And that was Jack and the Beanstalk. And that would have been close to 20 years ago now. So.
Right. Okay. Did that sort of add to it? Was that so? You didn't get the taste from that. It was just when it came along at school.
It was, and when I say I did that murder mystery show, that's where my sort of love of acting began. Before that, I always enjoyed like film and performance and that, but I never really ever considered doing it myself. And so when I actually ended up doing it and found I really enjoyed it, it was a bit of a revelation to me, I must say.
Okay. So did you carry that on in sixth form?
Yeah, we did Bugsy Malone the year after we did the murder mystery, and that was linked with the girls' schools. So we were able to do, obviously, having men and women be able to be in the show meant we could do other things other than, because in the murder mystery show we had lads dressed up as girls. When we got to Bugsy, we were able to do a joint production with the girls' school, and so made it a lot. Well, it was certainly interesting, I must say. Our boys' school, where they send over a group of girls at the end of the day to do rehearsals with, and you should have seen some of the faces, of, especially the younger lads.
I can imagine, hormones going wild. Yeah. I should think. And so there's you're not going to be concentrating on your scripts, are you? Let's be honest.
The one rehearsal I always remember. It was about a couple of days before curtain up on the first night, and we were doing an all-day rehearsal. They'd actually given us the whole day off school so we could do a full day's rehearsal.
Nice.
And I think it was just around break time. And in the hall there was like a balcony with loads of rooms on it that the lads all the other lads in school would walk across.
Yeah.
And so they walked across, and all the girls were on stage at the time, and all these lads just started gathering on the balcony.
Wow.
Gosh, you'd have thought like the President of the United States had walked in, the amount of people that were just like cramming into this.
It's like they'd never seen a girl before.
No.
And you were one of them, weren't you? You were up on that balcony.
Oh, no. I was on stage with them, of course.
Not Sam Hughes, no, of course not. So, did you go from sixth form straight to Stratford College? Yes,
so after sixth form, where I did a couple more shows, the Stratford we started in, it would have been 2014, wasn't it, the first year?
Yeah, September.
Just before I went to Stratford, I did Les Mis, of course.
Oh yeah. You've skimmed over Yog. What happened with Yog? When did you start that?
I'll have to correct you on that. I'm afraid it's Yos.
Yos.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Maybe Yog's the Coventry one. Could well be.
On stage. Yeah. So after I think I'd done Annie in sixth form, and coincidentally one of my old primary school teachers went to see that, and she was linked with Youth on Stage, and so she got in contact with me and told me about them, and asked me to just come along to one of the rehearsals they were doing one night.
Yeah.
And I went along, and again, it was a big thing for me. So, yes, there's acting at school, and it's all fun and games, but to go and find a group that is specifically tailored for performing arts, it was a totally different kettle of fish.
Yeah, people who actually want to be there.
Yeah, I'd never done anything like that before. So when I went in, it was quite scary for me, to be honest. But then only a couple of weeks in, I was so comfortable there. Everyone was brilliant at Youth on Stage. Before that, I'd never even heard of Les Mis either. So when we did it,
Oh, ouch.
it would have been just after the film had come out as well.
Oh, yeah.
The film had come out, I watched the film, and then I actually got to perform it on stage. So it was all one thing after another, discovering the joys of Les Mis.
They were like, look at this quality film, let's do that.
Yeah. It pretty much was that. It was sort of, the film had come out and then they'd done the school edition not long before that. So,
yeah.
And that was the version I did, obviously. So when the film came out and they were sort of riding off the popularity that Les Mis had got around that time.
Yeah, and you played Thénardier, of course. You're so made. You're made for Thénardier. You're like Matt Lucas with hair.
Well, that was the funny thing about that is originally Debs, the director for the show, was thinking of what she could do with Thénardier. She wanted him to have long hair. And she saw me walk in, and because I had to play other roles, she said, I'm going to need you to put a wig on for the other roles so you can have your actual hair for Thénardier. Whereas originally she wanted Thénardier to have the stupid hair. So that says a lot, doesn't it?
No comment. But yeah, because if you see it in London or somewhere like that, he's proper sort of Frank Gallagher from Shameless, isn't he? He's not like he is in the film. He's all very scraggly and dirty teeth and everything. Yeah. Oh, she had a high opinion of you then.
No, honestly, I say Youth on Stage was so good to me. And it's still probably one of the best performances I think I've ever done was in that show, because it's one of those shows where everything comes together, all the right people and all the people who are playing the lead roles especially just all fit them perfectly for it. So it's such a fun show to be a part of.
And they're quite big budget, aren't they, as well? Like, because I think you've shown, I've seen a video of you performing Master of the House or One Day More or something like that, and it's quite a big set.
Yeah, especially for that one. We had the set brought, I believe it was brought in from Wales somewhere, the set for that one. So it was very, if you've seen Les Mis before you, and they have the barricade that sort of turns around on stage and that, we had all that. But a lot of it as well was just people donating stuff for the show that we could use on stage, so benches and work tables.
So you actually had the turning barricade and whatnot?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's like two sets of piles of wood on wheels, and they would sort of separate in the middle.
That's a health and safety officer's wet dream, that, isn't it?
Well, yeah. If you ever get a chance to watch it again, the amazing stage crew we had, who were constantly just running on stage, just making sure that the stuff doesn't hit the kids as it's going round.
Yeah, it must be good. What's the age range of Yoss?
I believe it depends on the show. Usually it's anywhere from, I believe, 6 to like 25. But because of the age restrictions on that show with Les Mis, the oldest you can have is 19.
Right.
But normally, Youth on Stage, for like pantomime and that, it'll go up to 25.
So you would have had pretty young kids in that show then, and this massive bit of set swinging round, probably threatening to take a couple of them out.
No, I'd say that it's one of the major concerns was the safety of the kids. It was, if they were ever going to move the sets or anything, they made sure all the kids were off stage first. It was never that sort of worry of get them off the stage. Yeah, it was
a nightmare, I'd imagine.
Luckily, in the years since I have done help with the stage hands for their shows, and I can definitely say it's one of the main things, is especially when you're dealing with big set pieces. The main thing is making sure everyone is off stage first before you ever think about moving anything.
So you started off there fairly young, and like you say, now you're sort of behind the scenes and helping them put on the shows. Does that make you feel old? Do you get looked up to?
Well, I wouldn't know exactly how they felt, but there was definitely the younger ones that were in Les Mis when I was there. They are still in Yoss now. And when I go back, and it's not, especially from my point of view, it's nice to see how much they've progressed since that stage where they were more just sort of like the extras on stage, and now they are doing the lead roles in their own performances now. It's nice, especially nice to see it from that perspective. In terms of how they feel about me now.
we could speculate all day. But, but yeah, so it's a nice community thing for kids wanting to get into acting in Birmingham. So before we move on to after YOS, before we get to Stratford College, you had a Peaky Blinders audition, didn't you? Is that right?
No. Well, this was the open audition that they had in Birmingham. It would have been just before Les Mis, actually. They put out this audition sheet saying any teenage lads from Birmingham were looking for young actors with proper Birmingham accents to come in and audition to be in Peaky Blinders. So me and a couple of my mates from school were like, oh, that's a really good opportunity. We'll have to go down for that.
Yeah, it's not something to be sniffed at, basically. I mean, especially when you're in Birmingham and the success that Peaky Blinders had and has.
It was especially at the time when it was a relatively new thing, but everyone knew it was good quality BBC television. So an open audition doesn't come along, especially on your doorstep that often. So me and a couple of my mates went down that day, expecting there might be a few people there. Oh, we were in that queue for, it must have been plus 5 hours.
Ooh.
For a 5-second interview where you're thrown into a room with about 30 other lads.
Yeah.
All you're essentially told to do is tell us your name and something about yourself.
Well, so you weren't asked to prepare any sort of monologue, or...
It was for that stage of the audition. It was very much they were looking for the appearance. What they neglected to tell us, from what I gathered after the fact, was that they were looking for 3 actors, or 3 roles, I should say. One of them was an Indian lad. Well, not sure I'm going to be able to get that one down.
No, possibly not.
A much younger lad, so they were looking for a sort of a 10-year-old Cillian Murphy's son character.
Right, okay. That's knocked 2 of the targets down.
And the other one was a black lad, so obviously the fact that they just didn't bother telling anyone that.
So that wasn't on the posters or anything?
All they said on the posters was they were looking for lads between the ages of 10 and 20 to come down and audition. They didn't tell you that they were looking for specific ethnic groups.
Right.
Or in that ethnic group, that they were only looking for someone a lot younger than you.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think they'd save themselves and yourselves a lot of time by saying we're looking for people from this background, with these specific appearances.
At the end of the day, though, I was still glad I went down and did it, but it just felt a bit, after the fact, it did feel a bit like, well, surely that's a waste of your time as well. If you're just going to all these. Because I say there were thousands of people in that queue that day, and there's a good half of them that didn't stand a chance before they even went in the door. So
yeah,
that's one of the savage things about this industry is a lot of it just goes by looks. People, I know someone who when the new Star Wars was announced. You've heard of Star Wars, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. They did the open auditions before they gave the lead parts to pre-trained people. And obviously millions turned up, and I know someone from Cov Uni who went there, got into like the final round as he told it anyway, and he literally just walked in front of a panel of casting directors. They took one look at him, said no thank you, and he just walked out again. That was it. Yeah. Obviously not to criticise at all. You've got a very unique appearance. You've got the sort of 20-year-old Bill Bailey going on.
Yeah, I've been told this many times before, and not really in a detrimental way. In that people who I've spoken to who have had experience in the industry have always said that that's a good thing for me to have. Is that I don't really look like everyone else. So if I was to walk into an audition, because I don't have that sort of look of chiseled young teenager. At the time anyway, when we've been told this sort of thing, in that if I was to go for a role that wasn't calling for that, then I'm going to have a better chance because I have a more distinct, unique look.
Yeah, okay. So you've never felt the need to try and conform with your appearance, that lovely face? You never tried to. You've never thought of changing anything.
Oh no! If the role that I was going for was to call for something, like for example, you asking me to possibly cut my hair for when we do Sherlock Holmes eventually, I'm more than happy to do something like that. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and attempt to change my complete physical appearance just to look like a certain role.
Yeah. And why not? That's a nice liberating view. And you don't get a lot of them when you're talking about things like this. So you had Yoss, you had Peaky Blinders, and then so you told your mum and dad you wanted to go to college and study acting. What did they think?
Well, they were happy for me to give it a go, because they'd been there while I'd been doing stuff like the Os and that, and they'd seen all the good response I was getting from not just the people who I'd working with, but after the shows I'd get complete strangers just walking up to me to say, well done. So the fact that people were taking time out of themselves to say that I was good at this, that was the thing that sort of said to me, well, if that's what you're good at, maybe that's what you need to try and invest more time in. Because I was never academically minded in terms of, I was competent enough that I felt I understood the stuff, but I was never an A grade student.
Yeah.
So when acting came along and it was something that I excelled at, yes, that's when the point I said, well, if I'm going to uni, I might as well do something that I know I'm good at. So I went off at the end of sixth form. I went to certain unis to look at courses and that were open to me, because I knew with how the sort of time frame I was entering acting, the drama school was a bit of a push maybe for me. So I thought university was probably the better option.
What made you think drama school was a push?
Well, the expense for one thing, but then also I didn't really understand it all that much. I knew it was a lot different to applying for a university place. So,
Yeah.
And plus the timing of it was better for me to go to uni anyway.
Would you have been prepared to move away from home? Say if you went, up north or London, if you had the opportunity to go to a drama school or something in one of those two places, was that an option?
I think maybe if I was to maybe have tried a couple of places and one of them was to say you've got a definite place with us, then I would have said yes, I will go and move away from home and go do it.
Yeah.
But until unless I had a guaranteed place at a school like that, then I wouldn't just up and leave to try my hand at it. I'm not sure if I'm that courageous quite yet. I say that though. I went off to Stratford College.
Yeah.
And although I was technically still travelling from home most of the time, it did feel very much like a separate entity to my home life.
Yeah. Well, you stayed there quite a lot, and we will get onto that. But first of all, what drew you to Stratford College?
Well, as I'm sure you'll attest, I was promised quite a lot.
Well, yeah, that was.
Also, I suppose the main thing really for me was the history of Stratford itself.
Yeah, the Bardstown, Stratford-on-Sea.
All the other places I've been to did offer quite a lot, but I think just the location and, as I say, the history that went along with it, Stratford just immediately stood out to me as that'd be a really nice place as well as a really good place to study acting.
Yeah, because it is quite an attractive prospect, isn't it? Because it's a nice little English town. You've got the RSC there. But to be fair, that's probably all that calls you there, really, isn't it? I don't suppose, because before we got there, that's all we knew that was there. We knew there was the college, we knew there was the RSC, and we knew it was a nice little place.
Well, I think it sort of helped the fact that when I went for my auditions and when I went to the open evening at Stratford, it was around Christmas time. Stratford really stands out at Christmas. It has all the lights up and all the Christmas market, and it just looked like such a lovely place. Not just to visit, but to be able to semi live there would have been lovely. So
yeah, I think even in the rain, Stratford looks quite appealing, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, the courses the other universities were offering me, while there was acting involved, it was more 25% practical acting 75% academics and essays about theory, which, yes, I was interested in learning, but the practical side to me in acting always has to take precedent over that. And so when I looked at the course for Stratford and where it was more, they told you that it was going to be a lot of practical acting, practical sessions with different styles of acting and different performance styles. That immediately stood out to me more than spending hours a week in a lecture hall being told how to act rather than actually being allowed to act.
What was your audition piece? Do you remember?
My audition piece was from a show called The Pillow Man.
The Pillow Man?
Which is it's basically...
Sorry, for someone who's running a podcast about acting, there seems to be surprisingly a lot of things I've never heard of.
No, but in all honesty, it's been a fair few years since I've read it now. It was a piece that I picked up when I was doing A-level drama, and it's quite a dark psychological piece.
Yeah.
All that guy he's basically telling a horror story. It was it allowed me to play to my strengths, I felt. So when I did, and it got me into the course, obviously.
Yeah.
That was an interesting way to go about it as well, especially with the other people that I was doing auditions with that day, who I believe I had been put in with a group of other. While there were some actors there, I think there was more musical theatre lot as well. For their acting pieces as well, they were choosing scenes from musicals as well that had acting in them. And so when I came up and I did this like really creepy sort of, the way I look at him, he's quite a gaunt sort of character.
Yeah.
Sort of imagine like a more humanised Gollum.
Right, okay.
Everyone else is just sort of looking at me after like, oh God.
Yeah, but to be fair, that was probably one of the big advantages. So if everyone's doing these sort of like cheesy or melodramatic bits from musicals, and then you come in with this dark piece, that again, it's like what you were saying, not only with your looks that would stand out, but you've got the piece that stands out as well. So that's going to, for whoever's auditioning, that's going to be quite memorable.
Yeah, I felt that as well. Like, especially with, I can't remember his name, the guy who auditioned us that day. He actually took me aside after as well, and he said he found it really refreshing to have someone come in and do what is not, because there was a lot of people doing Shakespeare and stuff, sort of what you consider maybe a generic audition piece.
Right.
They just take a random monologue from Shakespeare, or there was people doing famous movie scenes as well. And so he said he found it quite refreshing to have someone taking what might be considered obscure play and do a piece from that.
So you spent 2 years at Stratford. What in the first year stood out for you? Because we complained a lot in the second year, but I think the first year was probably even worse. Because it felt like, I don't know what you felt like, being like back in school, it was like the people who were there just thought it was a DOS. You know, they're paying thousands and thousands of pounds to be on the course, but they were just dossing around.
Yeah. I think in hindsight, yes, I do agree I think there was definitely positives as well. I'm not going to totally bash Stratford. It did give me a lot of skills that I'm still using today.
Yeah.
But I'd agree with you on that there was a few people there who made it a lot harder to enjoy the course, because while you felt like you were trying to put your all into it, there were certain people there who just, you felt like, come on.
Yeah, because there was one day we'd had several weeks rehearsing, ready for practical exams. So I think it was the last voyage one we did. It was a sort of contemporary devising piece. So we'd been working on that for 4 or 5 weeks coming up without, I think it was 3 people of our 9 or 10 people on the course who just hadn't turned up for all of that. They walk in on the day of examination, sort of expected to be told what to do, where to stand, so they can get their marks. What was your reaction to that?
I feel like in terms of what it was originally set out to be for us, it fell well short of expectations. in that we wanted it to be like this final end of year show that felt like all the stuff that we'd done over the year would go into that final show.
Oh right, yeah. So like a big crescendo of the year.
It'd feel like a culmination of everything that we'd done up to that point. Whereas in the end, through no fault I'd feel in our own, it ended up being very rushed. Like the fact that you had to write the script yourself, just on your own, just so that we'd have just dealing it out to you to say, can you write us a script in a couple of days so that we can have plenty of time to rehearse it before the actual show day, rather than months of collaboration between everyone on that course to come up with a show that benefited everyone.
So when you're working that hard for weeks on end and you're trying to, because you want to do this professionally, when you're putting all this in for weeks and weeks, and then someone comes in and tries to ride on the back of what you've done on the most important day of that season, what?
No, I get where you go with it. Yeah, it was frustrating, certainly, especially for me, you, and the other people who'd gone through that whole year, stuck it out, and said we're going to go through to the end. For someone to come in at the very end to say, like, come on, what? I'm part of this as well. No, you're not.
So is it important to you to have everyone do their part, do their piece, and contribute?
Yeah, definitely. Well, even in the time like we've been with Cloud 8, I've been very straightforward with you. When I feel someone's not pulling their weight, I will say to you, as the director of Cloud 8, I don't feel like this person's pulling their weight. Is there really any need for them to be here? In the same vein as that, that's how we felt when it came to that final performance.
Yeah, we've been quite lucky in Cloud 8. It's only been very few.
I'm not throwing shade at anyone in Cloud 8 here, like going,
No.
No.
Go on, Sam, if you can name someone, who would you put out there? Who would you chuck into the boat? Go on.
No, I would never say Gilligan. No, of course. No, I'd agree with you there. We've definitely been lucky with Cloud 8 because, again, it's the whole idea that for the show to be really good and for the audience to see that how much people care about what they're doing always makes the show look better because the audience can know that you're enjoying it. So for a lot of what we did at college, where, as you say, there were people who clearly they weren't either 100% into it or they just didn't particularly care, it sort of reflected, it ended up making you perform worse because you felt like, oh, well, what's the point in me trying if they're not going to try?
Yeah. So that, I think with that in mind, with the whole, I think we both agree it's important to have the big team that contributes into the big project, blah, blah, blah. I think we got a taste of both ends of the spectrum in the second year. In the second year, there was just me and you on our year doing God knows what. But the one redeeming thing we did have in the second year is that college sent us to Tread the Boards Theatre Company in Stratford.
Indeed, yes.
What were your feelings when we were first told you're not going to be at the college for 60% of the year? We're going to send you outwards.
I always remember because they took, I believe, I don't know if it was just me or whether it was both of us, in that sort of last week of the first year, they actually took us into, well, they took me into a meeting. They sort of said, based on the fact that quite a vast majority of the people on your course have said they're not coming back for the second year, we probably won't be able to offer you the course. Because at that point as well, I'm not even sure if you were 100% as to whether you wanted to do the second year. And so I said, well, ideally, if there's even a remote chance of me being able to do a second year of even something similar, then I'm happy to do that because I've signed myself up for 2 years. If I was to be told that the second year isn't there for me, I'm sort of left on my arse because I've got nothing else to do then. So when they got in contact again for the second year, coincidentally through that lovely education piece that we did at the RSC.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, that was in between the years, wasn't it?
We can talk about that in a bit because there is a couple of very important moments we need to discuss on that.
Yeah, there are.
When we came back for the second year, and they told us that we were going to meet JP, and he was going to incorporate us into some of Tread the Board shows, and Tread the Boards being, I believe, one of only 3 of the professional theatre companies working out of Stratford.
Ah, yeah. You've got the RSC, you've got Tread the Boards, and the Bear Pit. Am I right?
The Bear Pit. And it was a very enticing thought that we were going to get not just to be able to perform, but to be able to perform with a professional company. I thought it was a brilliant idea, especially because, as you say, because there was limited numbers of us, it meant that we were going to be able to do proper shows and not just be resigned to doing 2-man shows all year.
Yeah, because it's all very well having these interesting contemporary shows that only depend on 2 people. I mean, unless you're Rick Mail and Aid Edmondson, the chance of pulling that off is very slim. Or, you know, Ian McKellen and Derek Jacobi, I think they manage it, but it's slim to none chance that anyone's going to be interested in watching it. So we go along to Tread the Boards, and we get Frankenstein, a pretty sexy first choice for us. Well, I mean, obviously we didn't make the choice, but it was a sexy first project for us to do there.
I definitely. I think what sort of took me aback with it as well is, yes, I've done theatre before, but that was, I think, my first real taste of like proper professional theatre, especially when we got to see Aid for the first time in the monster makeup. And it just made me realise, like, I'm in a proper show here. This isn't like a group of lads on a Friday night putting on an amateur production of Shakespeare. This is a proper professional company.
Yeah, this is it. And this gives you the taste even more after having your faith wavering over the last, 10, 12 months with the first year at Stratford. So going into that, I suppose that gave you even more of a taste of where you wanted to go.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because I always appreciated the fact that JP, because it could have very much have been a case of JP letting us be part of the shows and then sort of saying you can have these background roles and then you're not needed on these days, and having the professional actors in these days, and then you can come in. No, we were always treated with respect. I felt in that we were asked to come to every rehearsal and be a proper part of the production, rather than it feeling like they're the actual actors and you're here because you're training.
Yeah, I think because it was a company of 8 or 9, if I remember rightly.
I believe it was 9 for Frankenstein. Yeah.
Oh, right. And it was like, considering it was like the perfect first taste of professional acting, because everyone got along with everyone. Everyone cared. Everyone was 100% committed to it. And I think that showed in the actual shows as well when we came to the performances. Because what was it, a 3-week run?
Well, 3 weeks for you, because if you remember, we weren't actually told about it until maybe it would have been about a month before we actually went and performed. We were going to be doing Frankenstein, and I'd had a holiday booked for a year in the middle of the run. That was fun, and I actually told JP and Kat that I wasn't going to be there for the whole second week.
So knowing the sort of level of professionalism that they were expecting at this place, how squeaky was your bum when you knew you had to tell JP and Kat that you were just going to take holiday for a week in the middle of that run?
It was like a mouse in cheese. It was that squeaky. It was just like, oh my god.
Oh, nice.
As you say, with them treating us as professional as they were, we wanted in return to appear as professional as we could to them. I wasn't going to be like childish about it. I wasn't going to go like. I just went up to him and said, "Sorry, I've had this holiday booked for a year, so I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do it." And again, he was very professional about it. He said, "That's fine," because most of what I did in the show ended up getting lumped on you anyway.
Yes, yeah, I remember that.
I didn't feel too bad about it.
Yeah, because I mean, as much involved as we were and as welcomed as we weren't principal roles, so we were all right in that respect.
But then I feel that helped us as well because being able to be part of it, but not being thrust to the front of it straight away, allowed to sort of be a part of it where on sort of fringes and be allowed to study it as well as be a part of it. Half the fun of it when we would go along to rehearsals and we'd see, especially when JP was directing Steve and Arthur, for example, we were just allowed to just be a fly on the wall and watch as he's directing these amazing actors.
Yeah, and these rehearsals would go on till 10, 11 at night, and we didn't give a shit. We were just enjoying it. We were enjoying the process.
That's what made me appreciate it as well, is that it didn't feel like college to me. Obviously it was college. We were being graded on these performances. It felt like we were actually in the world of acting. We were performing with a professional company, and it didn't feel like work whatsoever.
Yeah, and we, bless JP, must have had some faith in us, because obviously we went from there. We did Romeo and Juliet, which again, similar process, different cast. But then we came along to Bouncers, which is 4 principal roles for a 2-hour show, something like that, hour and a half, and 50% of that he gave to these 2 college students. I'm sure part of the reason was like because it was for college, they weren't paying us. It was to help us out, and I'm sure that would have been a big contributing factor to his casting decision. But I think it was good to risk the reputation of his and Kat's hard built company to put
to amateur performers. Yeah, in many ways, I always look at Bouncers and some of the stuff we had to do in that. Yeah, as you say, it was putting a lot of faith in us because even just down to, I don't know, even just doing the Liverpool accents, having to learn the Northern accent, which I'd never done before in a show.
Yeah, you've got to be quite diverse with Bouncers, haven't you?
That's what I mean. Is if you're thinking if JP was doing a professional audition for that show, he wasn't going to hire someone who probably hadn't even before the show done a Northern accent. So I'll never not appreciate what Kat and JP did for us.
Yeah, they were amazing, and you know, bless people at Stratford who put us in that situation. So going from there, we sort of revived Cloud 8 from its semi.
Oh, hold on! I believe you're forgetting something, or someone, should I say?
Am I what? Oh, you wanted to talk about the RSC, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah, so
I think honestly, as much as yes, it was just like a 20-minute performance in front of a bunch of people we'd probably never heard of or never would see again. Even just a bit before it, where to put some context, before we went back for the second year, we were asked to take part in sort of like a TIE performance.
Yeah, theatre and education. And basically, I think it was the lady who was running the course at Stratford called us up and she was like, yeah, so there's a little theatre and education performance going on for the annual general meeting at the RSC. It's possibly going to have David Tennant and Prince Charles there. That was kind of a you fucking what moment.
And so we both agreed to do it. But then by the time it sort of got to the day, we'd sort of petered out that these people were going to be there. We didn't think it would actually happen.
Yeah. It was just us with high hopes, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we got to the actual day, and I say before we went and did the actual performance, one of the best bits was they took us out onto the actual stage at the RSC.
Yeah.
Because obviously we'd been to see performances, but to actually stand on that stage was something else.
Yeah, the names that have been there.
Yeah, I just remember it being how stacked it was, like, especially with my hair. When we were sat, they had like some plastic film on the stage, and so I sat down and my hair just shot up.
Yeah, we had to wear sort of plastic shoe coverings as well, didn't we? Protect the stage.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a day, and it was like, oh, okay, Prince Charles probably isn't going to be there, because him and David Tennant were going to be there because they're on the board for the RSC, aren't they?
Yeah, but as you said, so we went out and did this performance, And if any of you are ever lucky to find the video footage of us performing that, you'll notice at one particular point of the performance where Bodge is performing one of his speeches, and you'll see him suddenly stop in his tracks and just stare out into the audience, and it's because he's just spotted David Tennant in the crowd.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the most scariest things in my life.
So we were told we were allowed to go up to the sort of after meeting, like it was like a
buffet. Yeah, there's buffet on, weren't there?
And as we're up there, and we spot David Tennant in the
and Greg Doran. Greg Doran was there.
No. Greg Doran's tried to speak to you, and you fobbed him off.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was.
It was just this.
I was picking some, like, they had this really posh food, like, I don't know, it was like a caviar jam tart or something. And he was just like, oh, you want to try them? They're ever so nice. And I was like, all right, thanks. Why are you telling me what to eat? I had no idea who it was.
Context for people who don't know, Greg Doran is the artistic director of the RSC, the biggest theatres in the company.
Yeah, and I was just like, yeah, cheers, Hagrid, go away. Brilliant.
Going back to David Tennant, because we never talk about him.
Yeah, we ought to talk about this more, how we met David Tennant.
So I think the one thing we have to say is how humble we felt when we saw who is no denying one of the greatest actors of our time take time out of his day to come and talk to these young teenage students who just performed like 5 minutes of a tiny bit of Shakespeare on stage, and to give them congratulations and a bit of advice was so brilliant.
Yeah, it was just going up to, because obviously he is our hero, mine and yours. He is our absolute idol. And just the fact that he was an arm's reach away, and then we went up and spoke to him and took some pictures of everything. Oh my God. Did you just want to be in his place in 20 years' time?
It was very surreal in many ways, because you often hear people saying you should never meet your heroes, but it was one of those times. It was like he's everything you wanted him to be. It wasn't. Granted, we didn't get to like chat with him for hours on end, but you didn't need to. He was just a really nice man. Yeah,
we got 2 or 3 minutes each, and he was just so genuine, so complimentary, just friendly, and you know, I wanted to hug him. I don't know how you felt, but I just wanted to grab him and take him home. So you've done all this. You know, you've gone from YOS through college. We're now doing Cloud 8. What's next for you? Do you still want to chase this as a professional profession, for want of a better phrase?
Yeah, ideally, especially obviously the situation that we're in currently with COVID, it has put a major stopper on any practical performance that we could hope to put on, maybe for the whole of, especially for this year, maybe for half of next year as well. And even when we do get back, it is going to be on a much reduced scale to even what we normally would normally anticipate on a show.
Yeah, because we're in November now. We're 3 days into lockdown the second. The last show that we put on was Christmas last year. It's not so bad for us because our lives aren't dependent on the Cloud 8 shows. But for those that are, imagine the situation they're in. I mean, those who live on what they make in theatre.
Yeah. And not just the actors, of course, obviously. You've got anyone as high as an artistic director down to a bartender. All of the industry is seeing repercussions because of it. And as you say, we're quite lucky that we don't necessarily see it as our only form of income. But I'd also say it's also really detrimental because it's something that I really enjoy doing, and I would love to be able to do more of it. But as you say, our last performance was Christmas, and it just feels like we're missing out on all these opportunities to perform, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, we wouldn't have ever thought this time last year that we were just going to miss out on a year of performances. It's mental.
We were pretty much weeks away from doing Sherlock before all this happened. So.
Yeah, we were, weren't we? It was going to be it was mid-April. We were due to put Sherlock Holmes on, and then no, you're not allowed. Go home and stay home.
Aye.
Well, I think we've come around in a nice little circle. We started with you in your Birminghamlish home, and now we've ended with you stuck again in your Birminghamlandish home.
Aye.
Any wise words for the end of your podcast?
May the force be with you.
Oh, nice. Right, thank you, Sam. You've been listening to #Performing Arts, a Dumber Archangel Sounds production. Produced and edited by John Ellis Benton. Music by Aaron Crowder. Next time.
So
I will say
Yes.
there were two things. So no celebrity sightings, no touching Ian McKellen for me that day. But two things that did happen. I got interviewed for what I think was Spanish TV.
Yeah?
Like some regional thing. Anyway, some people there with what I think I wasn't the best at locating accents, but I think they were speaking Spanish. Along with English, obviously. After I'd done a monologue, they were like, "Oh, can we talk to you?" And they had a camera, so something happened there. Maybe it was just on the internet. Who knows? And I'm aware because the friend I was with that day noticed it. I was on BBC News like for 2 seconds.
Dumber Archangel.